Hi everyone. So today we are going to have a look at the pre-painted figurine of Ram, the twin sister of Ram and a major supporting character in the anime ReZero starting life in another world. This Ben Presto figurine is a prize from an Ichiban Kuji called ReZero Dreaming Future Story. Now, instead of winning this figurine by playing that Ichiban Kuji, I had actually bought her online from a third-party reseller. Let's go ahead now to unbox this prize figurine. As with most Ichiban Kuji prize figurines, at the front of the box art, there's this see-through window which allows you to look directly at the figurine even before you unbox it. So the front box art for the Ichiban Kuji figurine is fairly simple. There's not much to the design except for that see-through window. And if you notice at the bottom, there's this prominent letter C. This denotes that this figurine is the prize C of the ReZero Dreaming Future Story Ichiban Kuji lottery game. Technically, it is the fourth best prize you can win after prize A, prize B, and what is the last prize, which is the prize that you will win after buying all the tickets in that lottery game. So now let's unbox this Ram figure. Let me first remove it from the box. She is well protected by plastic blisters, which also allow a clear, unobstructed view of the figurine. Inside these two huge plastic blisters, there are yet more plastic wrapping that further protect the figurine. So this Ram figurine comes in two separate pieces, which is the whole figure intact as well as a simple round base. As I'm removing Ram from her plastic wrappings, I would like to further explain what I meant earlier by the last prize. As I said, this is technically the fourth best prize you can win after prize A, prize B, and what is known as the last prize. Now, the last prize is a prize figure that you can only win if you happen to purchase the very last lottery ticket that is available for that particular Ichiban Kuji. It is usually a color variation of one of the prize figures or with a figure with a slight variation in its pose or facial features. Now that I have Ram out of her plastic wrappings, let's get a much closer look at her in detail. Looking from afar, what strikes me immediately about this Ram prize figure is how well the sculpted proportions of her are. The size of her head and eyes, in terms of scale to the rest of her body, is just perfect. As such, the likeness of this figurine to the anime or manga drawings of her is extremely good. Ram's white dress has some pink shadings on the folds of her skirt, which complements her hair extremely well. I also love that large pink ribbon bow on the back of her dress, which has a pearl-like sheen to them. Now, her blouse itself has a lace filigree to it, which adds greatly to the simple elegance of the dress design. Sadly, there seems to be a very noticeable and large glue residue on her left thigh, which is a real disappointment. Unfortunately, this is just random bad luck, as the paint job of Ichiban Kuji figurines tends to vary from figure to figure. So I guess you win some and you lose some. On a more positive side, I'm pleased that they have added some orange shading to her skin tone, not only to her legs that you see here, but also to her back, her shoulder, neck, hands as well. This is a good thing because most figurines tend not to have shading on their skin tone. For her base, it's just a very simple round white base with some pink design on the circumference. That's just fairly basic. Let me just attach Ram onto this base before we have a look at her in not only greater detail but in a full 360-degree view. Because Ram's high heels and her ankle looks a bit fragile, I am using the work table as sort of a support structure onto which I can place the base in a more stable manner so that I can slot Ram onto her base without putting undue pressure on her ankles or high heels. So now I'm just making doubly sure that I have Ram attached securely onto her base so that we can proceed to the full 360-degree view of this Ichiban Kuji figurine. Well, it seems Ram is attached securely enough to her base, so we can now move on to have a close-up and detailed look at this figurine and all of her details. Looking at this Ichiban Kuji prize figure of Ram in a full 360-degree view, one thing that is fairly obvious to me is its higher overall quality, both in terms of paint job as well as sculpted proportions. Now this is in comparison to Banpresto's standard budget-friendly quality figures, which are either on sale or are worn in crane games. Personally, I was unlucky to obtain one that had glue stains and residue on not only her thigh, but there was also a little bit of glue stain or residue on her hair. But this doesn't distract from the fact that this is a very good quality figurine for an Ichiban Kuji prize figure. Ram is wearing a simple ribbon flower on her hair. Her hair is an opaque pink with highlights on the fringes. The skin tone on her shoulders, her back, and her hands were given an orange hue shading on the shadow areas. In a way, the warmer shadows on the skin tone contrast well against the cooler pinks and whites of Ram's hair and her clothing. Now her eyes are very well proportioned, as is the size of her head in relation to the rest of her body. As I mentioned earlier, in that sense, Ram's facial features in this figurine closely resemble those of her character in the anime and manga, which is what you always want to find in a very good sculpt of a figurine. Apart from the slight glue residue or stain on Ram's hair, there's one other thing that, if I were to nitpick, kind of bugs me about the sculpture of Ram's hair in this particular Ichiban Kuji figurine. Now, the color is fine to me. It's a nice opaque pink with a lighter pink on the fringes. But if you were to look at the front of the head, there's a long line groove across the top of the head, which is kind of showing the attachment of two halves of the head. While this long groove across the front half of the top of Ram's head can be excused as a parting of the hair, it would have been much better if they had sculpted a hairband across that groove in order to hide it from view. Ram's dress is predominantly white with a pearl-like gloss and pink shading for the folds on her skirt. Such colored shading also gives rise to the illusion that Ram is actually wearing a light pink dress. Now there's a huge pink ribbon bow that can be found on her back of her waist, and there's a similarly smaller ribbon of sorts on the front of her dress, especially at the chest area. Her blouse has a beautiful raised floral pattern, or perhaps you can call it a lace filigree, that you can just about make out even without any shading on it. Meanwhile, her skirt is plainer but it still looks dynamic with impressive folds that make her look like she's twirling in delight to show off her dress. Overall, Ram's elegant little dress has a color scheme of pearl white as well as various shades of pink. For example, the light pinks on her dress to the darker pinks or the ribbon bows and bows on her dress. All of this combined provides a nice contrast to the warm skin tones that she has, as well as accentuates both the elegance and the cuteness, or in other words, the Ichiban Kuji figurines kawaii factor. Ram's legs are well sculpted with orange shading for the shadowed areas such as the front and back of her knees, on parts of her heels, as well as on the edges where her feet meet her shoes, which are incidentally a pair of simple yet elegant light pink high heels. It was just pure bad luck that my Ichiban Kuji prize figure of Ram had glue stains and residues on her left thigh. Meanwhile, the base is just a simple round piece that has some light pink designs at the outer circumference. Other than that, it is a very flat, monotone looking base. Now that we have had a chance to look at Ram in close detail, let's move on to the pros and cons of this figure and give it a final rating. For this Ichiban Kuji prize figure of Ram, what I consider the pros are the good proportions, the appropriate scale of the head and eyes to the rest of her body, so that in a way this figure accurately resembles its anime and manga counterpart. To me, this is always a huge positive in any particular figure that you want to add to your collection. Secondly, it has a very elegant color scheme that suits Ram to a T, which is a very predominantly pink color scheme. And on top of that, thirdly, Ram is sporting a very nice demure pose here, which kind of suits what she is wearing too. But for the cons, the quality control for this particular Ichiban Kuji prize is very disappointing because mine had glue residue and stains on her thighs as well as on the top of her head. So taking all this into consideration, in an expanded 6-tier ranking system ranging from bronze or E rank all the way to special or S rank, I would give this Ram figurine a platinum or B rating. It is definitely one that I'm very happy to have in my collection. So that's it for this unboxing and review of the ReZero Dreaming Future Story Ichiban Kuji prize figure. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.